The colony of Victoria was separated from New South Wales in 1851. The separation tree in Melbourne's Royal Botanical Gardens attests to the 3 days of public holidays and merriment that accompanied the official separation announcement in November 1851. It was said that the discovery of gold was not going to be announced until the district of Port Phillip was independent from the colony of New South Wales and that other town to the north, Sydney. The northern boundary for the new colony of Victoria was defined as being the Murray River to the South Australian border. The border with South Australia was already defined as longitude 141 east when it separated from New South Wales in 1834. Victoria's northern boundary with New South Wales is further defined from the nearest source of the Murray River to Cape Howe on the east coast. Victoria's boundary with Tasmania was taken to be 39 degrees 12 minutes south latitude, being the boundary of the colony of Tasmania when it separated from New South Wales. This boundary runs through Bass Strait's Hogan's Island group, approximately 7 kilometres south of Wilson's Promontory. Hence, almost all of the islands of Bass Strait are within the state of Tasmania. With modern surveying and global positioning system millimetre accuracy, it was found that the Victorian-Tasmanian boundary went through a very small unnamed island in the Hogan Group just south of Wilson's Promontory. This small island is now called Boundary Islet, and the calculated land length of the border between Victoria and Tasmania, it's just 84 metres. South Australia still maintains that Victoria occupies a slice of their state up the whole 141 east longitude boundary. The state boundary is a very historical case, being defined by early 1800s surveying techniques when it was exceptionally difficult to pinpoint your longitude. A Harrison chronometer and the new telegraph line from Portland and Mount Gambier to Melbourne and Adelaide in the later 1800s, this enabled surveyors and astronomers to accurately re-establish that Victoria had 3.6 kilometres of South Australia for the whole of the intercolonial boundary. Knowing the location of the intercolonial boundary was important because prior to 1901 and Federation, rates and taxes were levied and dependent upon these administrative political boundaries. The squatters around the Glenelg River between Portland and Macgambia didn't want to pay state and local government taxes once, let alone twice, so there was much disputation as to what state they were actually in. The South Australian government put up numerous cases to the Australian courts, all of which were rejected. The final appeal against the Australian High Court's dismissal of the South Australian case was heard in 1914 by the UK's Privy Council. The Privy Council rejected the appeal, and the 3.6 kilometres of South Australia is now officially in Victoria, with the longitudinal boundary being redefined as 140 degrees 48 minutes east. And that's also partly why on all maps the boundary hiccups down the Murray River when you go north into New South Wales. However, the most contentious Victorian boundary has to be the boundary of the Murray River dividing Victoria from New South Wales. It was presumed that the boundary between Victoria and New South Wales was the middle of the Murray River. Eventually, in 1855, an Imperial Act provided for the whole of the Murray River between Victoria and New South Wales to be included in the territory of New South Wales. The arguments about the border also extended to islands in the Murray, the wharfs that go into the Murray at Echuca, and other intercolonial infrastructure. The southern bank's water edge of the Murray was the boundary until a murder occurred, with the dead body being discovered on the southern bank above low water but below the high water mark. The prosecution for the murder was a Victorian affair, but the defendant sought to prove that he should be tried in a New South Wales court where there was no death penalty. The matter was referred to the High Court of Australia to decide whether or not the dead body was in Victoria or New South Wales. The High Court of Australia decided the dead body was in New South Wales, as the border was defined as the high water mark of the Murray River, and in river boundary parlance, the left-hand high water bank. Needless to say, with Murray River floods and new channels being cut by the Murray all the time, the boundary could extend into Victoria 20 to 50 kilometres under various big historical floods. Administrative arrangements and complementary legislation between Victoria, New South Wales and the federal government have overcome most of the historic boundary issues, especially water rights. But it still rankles Victorians that the Murray River is in New South Wales.